Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at OccupyFantasy.com, here with a look at some wide receivers for the Week 11 slates on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. Dropping these position previews every single week throughout the rest of the regular season, so if you like that, please make sure you subscribe to the channel below. That is the easiest way for you to get notified when we have some new content for you. If you like this video, we'd really appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up on the video. And of course, if you have any questions about wide receivers or anything else on this slate, feel free to leave one in the comment section below. You can also consider joining our Discord. A link to do so is above the description of every video. Just click on that join button. And you'll be able to get in the Discord and talk to Occupy members and staff about every single NFL DFS slate throughout the rest of the season. A lot of interesting wide receivers available on this slate. A lot of wide receivers I think people will be pretty focused on putting into their lineups. And the first one that I want to talk about is actually probably one that may go overlooked here at the top of the salary table. It's Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver one, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is an underperforming wide receiver for us. I'll have the full list for you a little further on in the video. But Chase with a 26% target share from Joe Burrow in the Bengals' last 3 games, 32% share of the air yards in that same sample, has 2 touchdowns, but is still underperforming based off of his large target volume. You see he has 32 targets over the last 3 weeks. Underperforming his expected fantasy points by almost 20 points, according to our metrics. So we like Jamar Chase a lot in this particular matchup here against the Raiders, which is one of the higher total games on the slate at 50 points at the current moment in time. Of course, like everyone else, we are excited and interested in this extremely high total game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dallas Cowboys at Arrowhead Stadium. And so Tyreek Hill with the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be one of the most popular plays on this slate. Tyreek actually was popping on our underperforming wide receiver list. We just excluded him because he overperformed his opportunity in that primetime game with a couple touchdowns against the Raiders in Week 10. So great opportunity here for Tyreek, but he's going to be popular regardless, so don't necessarily have to worry about whether he was underperforming or not. Just a ton of opportunity in one of the better offenses in football. Best weapon in that offense. We like Tyreek Hill a lot. 28% of the targets from Patrick Mahomes, 48% share of team air yards in Kansas City's last 3 games. First in our model this week, we project him for about 10 targets in this matchup against the Cowboys. They're certainly going to need him if this game goes the way the odds makers expect. This is the highest total game, 56 points. Definitely going to want a piece of that in your lineups this week. A.J. Brown with the Tennessee Titans is the next wide receiver that I'm interested in on this slate. He has a 27% share of the targets from Ryan Tannehill over the last 3 weeks, 49% share of the air yards. Even though he does have a touchdown in the last 3 weeks of play, he is underperforming his expected touchdowns by an additional touchdown. So not on our list this week, but A.J. Brown's still a fine play in a spot where the Titans will be a little decimated at wide receiver. Julio Jones out of the lineup for the foreseeable future on injured reserve. That's going to actually lead the field to play Marcus Johnson, who's just 3,500 here on DraftKings, 5,600 on FanDuel. So this is probably more of a DraftKings only play because the values at wide receiver on FanDuel a little more concentrated. 8.5 yard average depth of target for Marcus Johnson in this offense. He has 11 targets on 49 Ryan Tannehill pass attempts over the last 2 games without Julio Jones. That's good for about a 22% target share in those games. You can see why the field is going to gravitate towards getting Johnson into their lineups. He also provides the cap relief to get to some of the other things that we want to do on this slate. So feel free to use Marcus Johnson pretty liberally as a value wide receiver. Clearly very involved without Julio Jones. Clearly going to be one of these core building blocks at a value price, at least here on DraftKings, to get things done in Week 11. Marquise Brown with the Baltimore Ravens. A little bit of a concerning spot here with Marquise because he's actually not practiced on Wednesday or Thursday here leading up to Week 11. We'd like to see him log a practice on Friday. I feel a little better about his availability for this game against the Chicago Bears. Still clearly the best weapon for Lamar Jackson in this offense. Still dominating the target opportunity for the Ravens despite Rashad Bateman emerging, despite Sammy Watkins returning last week. See double-digit targets in 4 of the last 5 games. We're going to want pieces of Marquise Brown in our lineups, especially if we're playing Jackson as a high-risk quarterback in some lineups. That's going to be an important thing for us to consider here in Week 11. Devonta Adams, of course, always at the top of the salary table, it seems here at wide receiver. $8,400 against the Minnesota Vikings. This is another high total game on the slate. This is a game I think is an interesting one to stack between the Packers and the Vikings. As I mentioned in our quarterback video, this is a matchup where these two teams actually played two high-scoring games last year. 77 points, 50 points total between them. Looking for a repeat performance here in their first matchup of the 2021 season. Adams, clearly the best weapon for Aaron Rodgers. Leads our model in targets, second in our model overall by ranking on DraftKings. 34% of the targets from Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love combined of the last 3 weeks of play. 44% of the air yards from Packers quarterbacks, but hasn't scored a touchdown. Obviously missed the game in week 8 because he was unable to play. So even despite all of that, a good set of opportunities for Devonta Adams that we may want to leverage here in week 11 against the Minnesota Vikings. Michael Gallup with the Dallas Cowboys. This is basically the slate, right? Like this Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs game is probably going to be the most popular game on the slate. Gallup's price hasn't really moved. Played a decent amount in his first game back last week. Had 5 targets from Dak Prescott at a relatively valuable average depth of target, 11.4 yards. He's still cheap. Lets us do a lot of things in our lineups. He's going to be the cheap piece we're probably going to need in Dallas Cowboys and Kansas City game stacks in our lineups. So like Michael Gallup a lot. Obviously, no longer underperforming like he was last week because CeeDee Lamb had a big game. We're going to be interested in him. And certainly Amari Cooper is going to be interesting in this high total game. So we like all of these Cowboys receivers, but thinking about construction for multiple lineups, maybe low-risk lineups especially, Michael Gallup is going to be an important piece at this affordable salary to allow you to do the other things that you want in your lineups this week. Our underperforming wide receiver list, it's a big one this week, and it actually is led off by someone who doesn't even play wide receiver. Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins is leading our underperforming wide receiver model this week. 15% target share from Dolphins quarterbacks. That would be Brissett and Tua combined. Tua playing in relief last week. 21% share of the air yards. 0 fantasy points last week on 7 total targets. You don't underperform much more than that at the tight end position. Like the opportunity for Mike Gesicki to have a big bounce back game at tight end. I think he's a phenomenal tournament to play here in week 11. Marvin Jones with the Jacksonville Jaguars. 15% of team targets, 29% of team air yards. He's actually third on the Jaguars in targets behind tight end Dan Arnold and another underperformer on here, wide receiver Jamal Agnew for the Jaguars. So both of these guys are going to be interesting in terms of getting them into your lineups for the Jaguars, Marvin Jones and Jamal Agnew. We like them a lot. Agnew and Jones pretty similarly priced. Jones $5,200 on DraftKings, $5,700 on FanDuel. Agnew $4,700, $5,300 on FanDuel. Tyler Lockett with the Seattle Seahawks led the NFL in what many are affectionately calling prayer yards last week. Russell Wilson dropping back and just hucking it deep and hoping Lockett came down with it. Obviously did not happen. That's why he's on our list this week. Lockett with 25% of the targets, 41% of the air yards from Seattle quarterbacks in their last 3 games. Nearly 2 expected touchdowns. Doesn't have any. So we like the opportunity for Tyler Lockett to be a decent tournament value this week in DFS. Jalen Waddle, the second Dolphin that we have on here, the wide receiver from the Dolphins that we have on here. $5,600 on DraftKings, $6,700 on FanDuel this week. He's got a 22% share of the targets from Dolphin quarterbacks, 30% share of the air yards. It's a bit of a stronger role than Mike Gesicki. Very affordable price. Underperforming his expected touchdowns by nearly 2 touchdowns, just like Tyler Lockett. So all these Dolphins guys in a good matchup against the Jets seem to be pretty interesting and underperforming their opportunity. And speaking of the Jets, have an opportunity maybe to run things back with an underperforming, super cheap wide receiver. That would be Keelan Cole Sr. Keelan Cole's just $3,100 on DraftKings this week, $5,200 on FanDuel, so a little bit more of a decision point over there. 12% of the targets, just 21% of the air yards from Mike White, Josh Johnson, all these Jets quarterbacks have been playing, and there'll be a new quarterback for the Jets on Sunday in Week 11 in Joe Flacco, so maybe things will change. But the Jets have been rotating, 4 or 5 players deep at wide receiver. Cole's definitely one of the more involved ones and not meeting his opportunity. He has very similar expected fantasy points over the last 3 weeks to both Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder, just to give you a sense for the usage. Elijah Moore, obviously the one that has seen the best results of this group lately, but the data suggests these other guys are right there, and we like Cole the most as far as regressing back towards what his production should be as an opportunity in Week 11. DJ Moore with the Carolina Panthers has kind of replaced Robbie Anderson as the Panther that is consistently on this list. Price is down below 6,000 again. He's 5,900 on DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel. He has a 24% share of the targets from Panther quarterbacks, 45% share of the air yards. No touchdowns over the last 3 weeks. Now has Cam Newton returning under center for the Panthers. Much like Christian McCaffrey, he's played with Cam Newton before, so hopefully there's some chemistry here that'll help us realize some opportunity on our underperforming wide receiver list. Darnell Mooney, 20% share of the targets, 33% share of the air yards for the Chicago Bears over the last 3 weeks. The other thing that's working in Mooney's favor right now, Allen Robinson is probably questionable. We'll find out more on Friday, monitor the injury report, but he has been unable to practice as of Wednesday and Thursday for the Bears. So Mooney, not just an underperforming wide receiver, may see an even better set of opportunity in Week 11 if Robinson isn't able to go at wide receiver for the Bears. T. Higgins, also on this list from the Bengals, teammate of Jamar Chase, one of my favorite wide receivers on this slate. Higgins was on this list before the bye week, so we would have featured him last week if the Bengals were on the slate. So we like the fact that he is obviously getting a ton of targets in this offense, hasn't necessarily met the value there. So we like T. Higgins as well in this high total game against the Raiders, projected to be about 50 points total according to the odds makers. Those are the underperforming wide receivers. Those are my hero wide receivers on this slate. I want to thank you for sticking with me through this. Are there some other guys that I'm interested in that I haven't talked about? I guess looking through some of my projections quickly, Christian Kirk. As long as DeAndre Hopkins is unavailable to play, Christian Kirk is going to be one of the most enticing weapons for the Cardinals. So he'll be worth a longer look, especially if Kyler Murray can return. Brandon Cooks with the Texans returning to the slate. Still the alpha. They're going to like the opportunity for him once again against the Titans. They'll be chasing points, so they'll certainly be looking his way frequently. Obviously, Deebo Samuel, always in play the way he's being used right now by the Niners. Stephon Diggs may actually end up being one of the more popular wide receivers on this slate, with Buffalo favored by a touchdown or more, depending on where you look, for the Bills against the Indianapolis Colts, and still clearly the number one wide receiver, number one target for Josh Allen. Also have Cole Beasley nursing a little bit of a rib injury, which led to him being limited last week. So Diggs going to be relied upon even more without some of these secondary pieces being able to play a full complement of snaps. A lot of places we can go on this slate. A lot of exciting teams are back in action in Week 11, back in action on the main slate here in Week 11, and we're certainly excited for it to roll around and get here. For more information, keep an eye out for the Daily Plug, which we will post at OccupyFantasy.com on Friday evening. In the Daily Plug, we will have not just our favorite wide receiver plays, not just the underperforming wide receivers. We will also give you favorite quarterback plays, running back plays, tight end plays, and how to use them effectively in both low-risk and high-risk lineups. Playing the players appropriately in the type of contest that you're playing is the most important part of being successful in DFS. So we'd love to give our tips and help you with that every single week. Please, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment below. We appreciate it if you can do all those things. It helps us out. And once again, folks, as always, for Occupy, I am Chris. Thank you for watching, and we will talk to you soon.